Okay, friends. Now, today I am going to talk about three studies, three research on towns and cities in Turkey and social class, social stratification, urbanization, community structure that are studied, elaborated in these research. Okay, now the research are carried out by my PhD students, and then they wrote their PhDs. Of course, they reviewed available material on the topic before they did the research, and after they did the research, they analyzed it and then compared it with, again, available literature. Okay, now these four theses are, the first one is by Hayriye Erbaş. It's Class and Culture, and it's about Kırıkkale, which I studied when I was a student together with my friends, and Ankara, and she compared an industrial city, Kırıkkale, and an administrative, mostly an administrative metropolitan city, Ankara. Now let me share this thesis with you, and let me show you some of the content of the thesis, and then I will go into some of the tables. Few of them, I cannot go into many of them, of course. Our time is limited. So here, Hayriye Erbaş's thesis is coming, and you can see it. As you can see, you know, you can download this, you can look into details of it. You know, it is already in the higher education councils, thesis list. You know, it is already there. You can download it from there, but also I put it here. Sorry. How can I do that? Sorry, I have to close this. Yes, now it will not disturb me. Okay, now I was just starting to discuss on this PhD thesis on Kırıkkale and Ankara, carried out by Hayriye Erbaş. Hayriye Erbaş presently is a professor and head of the Department of Sociology in Ankara University, Language, History, and Geography faculty. Okay, Hayriye Erbaş is there, and she did this thesis, defended this thesis, carried out the research during 1990, 91, 92, and defended it in 1993. From 1993 to 2022, you know, she's many years ago, she became a professor and doing a lot of research since that time. Okay, now I will go into the contents first, and you will see the thesis in a nutshell. As you can see, there's a literature review as usual in the chapter 1 introduction chapter, and then definition of the variables, class boundaries, basic premises, and she used in this research mainly, of course, there were other sociological theoreticians as well, but mainly Erik Olin Wright. Erik Olin Wright's work on class was her basic framework. Although at the end of her research, she also gave reference to Bourdieu, whom you know Bourdieu from your second year History of Sociology course. For example, the third thesis that I will talk today, Didem Yemeniciler's thesis, is based on Bourdieu's, mainly Bourdieu's sociological theory, whereas Hayriye Erbaş's was basically on Erik Olin Wright's theory. And actually we came together with Erik Olin Wright, his collaborators, other research groups in other countries, and Erik Olin Wright is from United States. The similar research is carried on in Sweden, in France, in Japan, in so many countries really. It was a comparative research on class structure and class consciousness. Erik Olin Wright coordinated all these studies, and he focused on basic classes in societies and basic class locations and contradictory class locations. Hayriye Erbaş talks about this here. Actually, maybe I could have shared, let me finish this content thing, and then I will share a graph actually from Erik Olin Wright. Just a minute. Then she talked about her methodology. So she has chosen a sample from Ankara and from Kırıkkale, and then she analyzed them according to basic and contradictory class locations. Now, she already introduction, she talked about this basic and contradictory class locations, but here she goes further into them, as you can see, and then she goes into how these classes account for, in terms of male and female, young and old, married and non-married, illiterate and educated, rich and poor, and according to housing standards, etc. And then she goes into mobility, intergenerational mobility and intra-generational mobility, and then in the explanatory power of these classes, and then conclusion. Okay, now I will send this away and then I will come back to this, but before that I would like to show you, let me just give me a minute, Erik Olin Wright's book Classes, or Erik Olin Wright's basic and contradictory classes. Here it will come, hopefully here. and share it. You see here, now this is figure 2.2 in Eric Olin Wright's book Classes, classes. Now, as you can see, Eric Olin Wright divides or tries to conceptualize classes in terms of in each society. He says there is, in contemporary societies, there is capitalist mode of production and simple commodity production. Capitalist mode of production and simple commodity production. Now, the basic classes in capitalist mode of production, as you remember from Marx, again from your second year history of sociology course, a working class and capitalist class are two basic classes. In simple commodity production, petty bourgeoisie, small property owners or shop owners, or small capital owners, small capital, and also they use their labor. So there are three basic classes: capitalist class, working class, and petty bourgeoisie. And there are, eventually he develops 12 classes, as we will discuss when you come to the fourth year, and if I am still here. But here we will see, in addition to these three basic classes, 5 contradictory class locations. Now, in capitalist mode of production, in addition to capitalist and working class, there are executives, you see, executives, CEO, and they are called now CEOs. And there are managers and there are supervisors. You see, some of them are from working class, some of them are, or they are closer, some of them are closer to capitalist class, some of them are closer to working class, depending on which society, about which society we are talking about. And then, again, these are 3 contradictory class locations in capitalist mode of production. But there are 2 more contradictory class locations. They are neither in capitalist mode of production nor in simple commodity production, but a combination of them. Small employers are closer to the capitalist class or closer to the petty bourgeoisie, depending on how many people they employ and they control, in terms of controlling their labor, controlling their surplus production, etc., etc. And then semi-autonomous employees. Now, small employers are maybe closer to capitalist class, whereas semi-autonomous employees are closer to petty bourgeoisie. These are 8 basic and contradictory class locations identified by Eric Olin Wright. Hayriye Erbaş added similar ones. Now I will go to, I will send this away, and then let me share again her thesis, and let me show you her basic classes and contradictory class locations, and how she compares them in the 2 cities. Okay, now let me go to okay, first no, table 5. Let me show you first table 5, which is in page 39. I think here it might already, I might be there. Okay, no, not yet. 39, okay. Now she talks about her sample here, and then basic and contradictory class locations. So here are her, okay, now, her classes, contradictory and basic classes, and their proportion in her sample. As you can see here, there are 425 household heads from Kırıkkale and 479 household heads from Ankara. Okay. Now, how many class, contradictory and basic classes she has? Now, as it is in Eric on right, capitalist, petit bourgeois, small employers, already there, managers and supervisors and experts, and workers, as you remember. But she added unskilled workers and casual workers. So workers are divided into three groups: as skilled workers, unskilled workers, and casual workers. And capitalists are kind of divided, or you know, small commodity producers, semi-autonomous. They are capitalists, small capitalists, petit bourgeoisie, and petit traders. So how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 instead of 8. She added workers are divided into 3, so 2 more there. The rest are 30 traders as well. So which all okay, 10 of them. Okay, fine. Now, before I go further, now she talks about the characteristics of these classes. She compares these 10 basic and contradictory class locations with 2 countries that Eric Olin Wright presented in this book that I have shown you in classes. And Hayriye Erbaş compared her samples from Kırıkkale and Ankara with United States class structure and Sweden's class structure, where they have similarities and where they have differences, of course, on the basis of the sample. Now, let me go to page 53. Now, I am coming there. I am already there, perhaps. 52, okay, 53. Now, this table. Okay, now this is a basic table here. Numbers and proportional, no, not this one. I'm sorry, not this one. Actually, it is in page 50. No, here it is. Yes, this one. Okay, now this one. Now, now the percentages are compared between USA and Kırıkkale. Now, if it is minus, it is more in Kırıkkale. If it is plus, it is more in United States. Okay, now in United States, skilled workers are actually both in Kırıkkale. Now let me see. This is USA and Kırıkkale, and this is USA and Ankara, the second column. The first column is USA and Kırıkkale. As you can see, managers, no, before that, petit bourgeoisie is more in USA, skilled workers are more, casual workers are more in Kırıkkale. Now, if you compare it with USA and Ankara, again, petty bourgeoisie is more, experts are more, skilled workers are more, petty traders and casual workers are more. Now, in terms of Sweden, now again petty bourgeoisie. So in Kırıkkale, in Ankara, and now in comparison with the Kırıkkale, petty bourgeoisie, and when you subtract from USA Kırıkkale, now it is plus. When you subtract from USA Ankara, it's plus. Also in Sweden too, 10% and 15%, 14.9% more in USA and Sweden. Okay, that's one. The second one, now if you look at Sweden with Kırıkkale, now in terms of skilled workers, it's more, and in terms of casual workers as well. Now, when we compare Sweden and Ankara, again, petty bourgeoisie and unskilled workers are more in Ankara. Of course, in unskilled workers are more in Kırıkkale, in Ankara, in comparison with the United States, and more in comparison, both in Kırıkkale and Ankara, in comparison to Sweden. Yeah, unskilled workers are more, whereas skilled workers are more in developed countries. Now, in Turkey, in Kırıkkale, Ankara, unskilled workers are more when compared with Sweden and United States. Now, when we compare, for example, managers, it's interestingly, managers are more in Ankara and in Kırıkkale in comparison with USA and with Sweden. But in terms of experts are more in USA, both in Ankara and in Kırıkkale, but slightly less in comparison with Sweden, Kırıkkale, Sweden, and Ankara, Sweden comparison. Okay, you see that. In terms of casual workers, again, that's more in developed countries. Okay, now this is just to have an idea about Kırıkkale and Ankara's basic and contradictory class locations in comparison with USA and with Sweden. Okay, now I will continue with the next table, which is a minute ago I was there actually, table 10. Now here, Hayriye Erbaş tried to see, different definitions of capitalists. In the narrowest definition, in Kırıkkale, capitalists are only 0.9%. Now, if we add small capitalists, it becomes 4.7. Now, if we add petit bourgeoisie, it becomes 20 points. If we add, traders, it becomes 22%. Yeah, in Ankara also 1.3, 5.3, and maximum. Now, the broadest definition, most extended, most narrow is 0.9 and 1.3. Very limited capitalist category. But when extended with all other owners of their means of production, the basic definition of capitalist class, it goes up to 22.8 in Kırıkkale and 26.6 in Ankara. Now, middle classes are usually petit bourgeoisie. Now, petit bourgeoisie in the narrow definition is 15.5% in Kırıkkale and 20.3% in Ankara. Now, when we add petty traders and skilled workers, skilled workers, upper stratum of workers are like petty bourgeoisie, according to some discussions about the stratification structures. Then when you add them, middle class goes up to 69.7% in Kırıkkale and 66% in Ankara. In these terms, one can say that, as a matter of fact, Turkey is a place where petty bourgeoisie was the largest. Anyway, this is a research in 1993. What does that mean? 30 years ago. Now, working class in the narrowest definition was 23% in Kırıkkale and 30% in Ankara. Now, if you add other contradictory class locations into the working class, like those who own their means of production, but who themselves work there, self-exploitation kind of, then it goes up to 77% workers and 73% in Ankara. I will not go into details of this. Now, I will jump to a point that when I was presenting my research on Çorum, middle-sized city, I found out that, as you remember, I discussed this, the people who were locals or who were natives to the city were, in terms of membership in associations, unions, or other civil society associations, they were least modern in terms of their approach to stratificational image, and also in their attitudes towards women, if you remember. Now, Hayriye Erbaş also looked at this natives versus globals, or natives, she called it migrants versus natives, those, in Çorum too, those who came from other cities and those who came from villages were more modern and more joining the associations, and she found out, now my research was in 1974, 75, now almost 20 years later, Hayriye Erbaş looked at her data along my, in terms of my findings, and let me just take you there, page 111, maybe I have to go. As you can see, so many tables here, really. When you do a quantitative research, you develop cross tabulations, and in all cross tabulations, let me show you, there is a test, significance test. If they are significant, you take them into, now I jumped, let me go here. Now she didn't put it there, but this is definitely a significant, in terms of statistical significance. You see that in Kırıkkale, town residents are only 6.8, those who are born in the city, in Kırıkkale. And most of them are from Kırıkkale, but from the villages and other towns around Kırıkkale. So town residents from the hinterland of Kırıkkale, 48%, even 48.7, 49%. And from outside of Kırıkkale is 44%. So the natives in Kırıkkale is very few, but town residents from hinterland also consider themselves as natives to the city, and there are different those who are from different districts in Kırıkkale compete with each other, or from different villages, depending on how many people came from that town around Kırıkkale, in municipal elections or in other elections, they form coalitions on the basis of that. This natives and migrants, or as we will see in Mehmet Erbaş, global and native, global and local distinction was first. It was in my research in 1975, my PhD research, and an article that I published from that. And later, Ayşe Güneş Ayata, a colleague of mine in Middle East Technical University, who also did her PhD research in a town, in a middle-sized city, I will say, and she found out that this division of natives and migrants is very basic, and it's a basic cleavage. It's a basic cleavage and source of conflict. Both Erbaş's, both Hayriye Erbaş and Mehmet Erbaş focused on that. I will come to Mehmet Erbaş's, but before I go there, let me show you one more or two more table from Hayriye Erbaş's thesis, and it's about man and woman relationships in the family between husband and wife, division of labor between husband and wife. How it is differentiating in Ankara and in Kırıkkale. Now I have to go to 155. Now, if you opened also this thesis in front of you, you can also go into page 155, and we will see. Now we are already there. Here we are. Okay. Gender relations in the family, the subtitle. Male participation into routine household tasks. Policy of the shopping. Now, what could this mean? Policy of shopping. Now, what is a misconception? Policy, a wrong conceptualization about shopping. Shopping is shopping, participation of man into household, in the division of labor, household work, or does it have some other function? And as we will see, Hayriye Erbaş argues that there is something more, an enigma there. Okay, now here first, let's look at Kırıkkale. Focus upon this one here. Can I make it a little bigger? Let me see. Do you see it? Yes, you do see it. Okay, fine. Now, now just look at here, never. Now, the question is, these activities, which ones do you participate? And what is given there? Never, I participate never into that activity in the household. Less than 20, I participate less than 25%, between 25% and 50%, between 51% and 75%, 76% and 100%. Okay, if it is in the last category, you know, oh man, husbands are really participating in household work, household work up to more than 75%. Very good. All feminists will approve this. You know, that is how a husband should be, they will say. But if never is percentage is very high, and then no, men at home are just sitting and watching television or reading newspaper, or if really they are good fathers playing with children but not participating in washing dishes or cooking meal or laundry, that is cleaning the dress work, textiles, laundry, or cleaning the house, household cleaning, and shopping and childcare. These were in the questionnaire. These were the activities, household activities that men were asked whether, to what extent, to what percentage they participate. Now they said that in Kırıkkale, now we are focusing on Kırıkkale. Now 87%, 88% almost, 88% said that they never participate in dishwashing at home. Only 22% they said yes, they help their wives, you know, they participate in the cooking meal. Never is a little less here, a little less, 76%, 10% less, even 12%. Ah, that's good. So never decreased from 88 to 76, 12%. That's good. So dishwashing, no. These men say, cooking meal, oh, okay, you know, they like, but not many of them though. I mean, still 24. No, I'm sorry. In the first one, only 12% participated in dishwashing, whereas in cooking meal, 24% said they participate in cooking the meal. But when it comes to laundry, oh, never, those who say never, goes up to 91%. Goes up to 91%. Now, when you ask about house cleaning, you know, with the, usually they use electronic house cleaning machines. I don't know. I think already in 1990s there were, but presently it is mostly electric cleaning machines. So never is 85%. Shopping, now shopping never goes down to 9%. Okay, now in Kırıkkale, 59% of men said that they do the shopping. You know, the household, one of the basic household activities. 59% said between 76 and 100%, and 29%, 28.6% said that they do that in between 25 and 50%. Wow, that's really good. But now, there is something there. But now let's look at childcare. Now, here too, although it is not as never is not low as 0.9%, but it is still lower than, say, dishwashing or laundry. 91%, half of it, 46%, said that they never take care of their children. That is wife's job, taking care of the children. And then next 40% says that they do, but less than 25%. So still 80% really, child care, almost very few, whereas fathers should be involved more in child care, with the care of the children. Now, if we compare Kırıkkale and Ankara, what do we see? We see that the never percentages are lower than Kırıkkale. For example, dishes is, instead of 88%, it goes down to 82%. Now, cooking meal was 76%, it is 72%, etc. And laundry was 91% never in Kırıkkale, it goes down to 88%. Yeah, I mean, not much difference. So 88, 3% less. Now, in terms of shopping, it's interesting. Ankara men, in comparison to Kırıkkale men, 23%, yeah, more. Ankara, never percentages more in Ankara in shopping. It's interesting. In terms of childcare, however, never is less than Kırıkkale, 13%. 52% says less than 25%, 18% says 25 and 50%, and 51 and 75%, 14.8, almost 15%. Now, this is really an interesting comparison in terms of involvement in household activities, involvement or participation of men. But now, although men are, never percentages very high in all activities except in shopping and childcare. Now, Hayriye Erbaş goes in deeper into analysis of this, and she says that actually shopping is done by men so that women will go less to the stores, grocery stores, or to the bazaar, in the bazaar days, and hence, shopping, participation in shopping is not equality enhancing, but it might be just the opposite. Sometimes the appearance and what is behind the explanation, but it's a hypothesis. Now, on the basis of this data, she says that it should be checked why men should be asked why, while they are not participating in dishwashing or laundry or house cleaning, while they participate in shopping. They will give many explanations, but one of them is less participation of women in public space. One of the basic debates in second half of 90s and 2000s, more and more women are participating in public sphere, as you know. So already here the discussion started early 1990s when Hayriye Erbaş did this research. Okay, now I have two more research to report. Now let me stop here. Maybe at the end I will compare 3 of them. Now let me send this thesis away, and now I will bring a research 2 years, done 2 years later in a town of Ankara, actually, Beypazarı. Beypazarı, actually, you know, it is one of the old towns, you know, where there are from 19th century, you know, houses typical of second half of 19th century houses, you know, the classical houses. Now it is open to touristic gaze, you know, many people go there and stay as pensioners in these houses. Okay, now let me share Mehmet Erbaş's. Now Mehmet Erbaş and Hayriye Erbaş, they are wife and husband in the meantime. And as I said, they were both my PhD advisees, and I was their advisors, both of their advisors. Now here, share this one here. Mehmet Erbaş, okay, this one, and share it. Here it is. Now the title of this research in this Beypazarı. So this is the market for the Lord, for the Bey, for the so some upper class people were buying from Beypazarı, you know, in old times. So the name of the town is Beypazarı. Interestingly, again, Mehmet Erbaş trying to explain, you know, or contributing to the anomalous finding in my research. You know, as you remember, in my research, in my PhD in 1975, I found, you know, that rent, actual rent and imputed rent had the highest correlation with modernity of women or conception of certification images or membership in associations, whereas residing in the city more is less related with these, or being born in the city is less, whereas the expectation is being born in the city and living longer time in the city should be more modern in the attitude towards, etc., etc. Now, both in Hayriye's, I showed that, you know, this is not Hayriye's basic premise, but in the case of Mehmet Erbaş, he tried to develop a theoretical framework and new variables, which he calls new measures of urbanization. Okay, now his thesis is on urbanization, but two modes of urbanization and urbanism in a peripheral town of Turkey, the case of Beypazarı. Okay, now this is his the title of his thesis, and I said he carried out this research, participant observation and questionnaire. He administered a questionnaire. He trained some of the students from Sociology Department in Ankara University and in Middle East Technical University, and they administered these questionnaires. Similarly, in Hayriye Erbaş's thesis to, you know, the collection of data. So this is the table of contents of Mehmet Erbaş's thesis. research problems and urban sociology. Definition of basic concepts: urbanism as social diversification, urbanization in two measures and two modes, a conventional measure of urbanization and how he defines them, and new measure of urbanization, as you have. So conventional measure of urbanization and new measure of urbanization, basic question, hypothesis, survey, and then she goes into analysis of the data in terms of, again, man and woman, in terms of gender, in terms of age, in terms of family type, in terms of gender relations, etc., etc. And he finds out that the new measures he developed explains the dependent variables better than conventional definitions of urbanizations. So new definitions of urbanization, and on that basis, new variables, new independent variables as the measures of urbanization, and independent variables to explain dependent variables. And this is our basic framework, as you remember. Now, let me show you one of the tables. Now, I go to page 184, where, no, before that, local and global modes. Okay, local and global modes, table 4. Now, where is table 4? Table 4. I have to very quickly look at for table 4. I usually take the page number of it, but this time somehow I didn't do that. Now let me find one of his tables, and then I will go into table 4. As you can see, he is explaining his theoretical framework and how he developed. Maybe here. Just a minute. Now this is city and village populations of Beypazarı by years. Okay, this is his table 1, and then what is his next table? Again, there are really something like 80 tables. You know, when you do a quantitative study, it is usually like that. And this is in terms of hierarchy of cities, where is Ankara and Beypazarı in relationship to that. And then now we come to the next table, where he defines conventional and new measures of urbanization. Why didn't I write? Maybe this is okay. Table 3 is his sample. Sorry. Table 3 in terms of conventional definition, and he divides conventional definition into sub-components like urban 1, urban 2, urban 3, up to urban 6, and then distribution of population in terms of space, in terms of time, and in terms of economics. You know, he defines urbanization in terms of relationship with the city, in terms of distance to the city and other cities, distance. In terms of time, you know, how long the person stayed in the city, whether being born in the city or coming from the city, from, or in economics terms, whether the owned economic property belongs to the city, one is, etc. You know, he defined his old conventional definition of urbanization in terms of space, time, and economic levels. And then he defined his new measures in terms of local and global. Again, now, for example, sub-definitions, sub-dimensions of local measure of urbanization. Local A is conventional identification of urbanization plus with duration of residence in the city. With duration of, here, conventional identification, the duration of residence in the city is one of the variables of the two modes, you know, the local mode and global mode. In the local mode, the first definition of the local is duration in terms of time, duration of residence in the city. Now, local B, another dimension, is local A with duration of residence in the rural areas. In the city plus in the rural areas. Now, local C is local A, now it was duration of residence in the city, minus duration of residence in other urban areas, and local D is local C. Now, local A was duration of residence in the city, minus subtracting residence in other cities. So what remains is only residence in the targeted city, whereas local D is local C minus duration of residence in the rural areas. So just residence in the city, local D. And global A is identification of urbanization with duration of residence in other. It starts now, global starts not with the city, a targeted city, but other urban areas. Now, global B is global A plus duration of residence in the rural areas, etc., etc. You know, he defines all these quantitative definitions, and then he compares these two modes of urbanization: local or native type of urbanization, and global, a more general urbanization in all cities. So global type of urbanization, one might be rural born, but more globally urban, but less locally urban, because being locally urban is defined with being resident in the local city, kind of. Okay, now here he compares in table 43 and page 185. I have to go down 185. Now these are already 200. Now let me go a little bit. Okay, I'm now close. 185. I came there almost. 187, 184. He also uses gamma coefficients, like for the significance and for the correlation. Both him and Hayriye Erbaş use gamma coefficients that I used in my thesis also. Now, distance of birthplace of fathers. This is the birthplace of fathers of heads of the households. When we look at fathers, were mostly in the surrounding villages, You see, only 14% were born of the fathers in the city. 64% were living in the villages, fathers. Whereas in the case of sons, most of them are living in the city. They are born in the city. Now, in terms with gamma, zero-order correlation coefficients between distance of birthplace of respondents and their fathers, and urbanization by conventional measure of urbanization. As you can see, now when you measure in terms of conventional, length of duration living in the city or being born in the city, and there is negative correlation, and only few others there's a positive correlation. In case of in urban, when you combine all subdimensions, it becomes positive and significant. Now for fathers, it is negative but not significant. Now, if you look at zero-order correlation between distance of birthplace of respondents and their fathers by new measure of urbanization, you can see that local ones are minus with the local, whereas with the global it's all positive. But in the fathers, even global D and global E are negative but not significant. You see, significant ones are two starred ones. Okay, now I think that is enough. And now let me go to one of the cultural activities that Erbaş takes and compares these conventional mode and new mode, especially new mode, two modes, local and global, in terms of going to theater, going to cinema, and going to concerts. Now 289, I have to go. I am already there, maybe very close. 289, okay, very close. Let me take a look. 82. As you can see, these are all correlation coefficients here. Now, what is this one? Watching TV programs. What type of TV programs? But I will not go into that. Or types of music. As you can see, folk songs and then Ottoman classics, 44 and 33%. Arabesque, 10%. Popular songs, 5%. Western classical music, only 0.4%. Okay, now going to cinema, never 50% of Beypazarı household heads never went to cinema, 50%. 26% went once, and 16% went twice, and 3% 3 times. 3% 3 times. Okay, now I think I was going to look at zero order correlation coefficients between conventional measure of urbanization and going to cinema, theater, and concerts. As you can see, with the conventional, it is difficult, only going to concerts and going to theater, the major dimension has two significant relationships, whereas with the new measures, again, differentiation in terms of theater going, the more global urbanization, the more they go to theater, the more global urbanization, they go to concerts, the more local urbanization, it is negatively correlated with going to cinema, to theater and to concerts. You know, being native of a peripheral city like Beypazarı is negatively correlated with going to cinema, theater, and concerts, whereas a global measure which captures global urbanization of residents in the town who are either migrants from surrounding villages or other villages and other cities. The new measure of global urbanization captures that, whereas local mode of urbanization, you know, two modes of urbanization. Local mode captures being identified with the city of birth, with the local city, being native of city, and whereas migrants are coming from other cities, from other places. Now, Ayşe Ayata, as I said at the beginning, a colleague of mine in Middle East Technical University, she is a professor of political sociology. She also did town studies. She found that, you know, in many towns around Turkey, one of the cleavages and conflict points is between the natives, those who are born there, and those who are migrants to the city. Okay, a similar finding that I found in my thesis. So while we are looking at the social structure of Turkey, we should be aware of this, and we should have it as an independent variable while we are explaining cultural variables, behavioral variables, attitudinal variables. Okay, now I will stop talking about Mehmet Erbaş's thesis here. Let me send it away, and then I will go into the third thesis that is finished 1 year ago, again by one of my advisees. I was advisor to her thesis. Now let me first share her thesis, and then I will go into the presentation of the findings of the thesis. Now here is the Didem Yemeniciler. Okay, as you can see here, whereas Mehmet Erbaş's and Hayriye Erbaş's theses were in English, because in Middle East Technical University, the basic language of instruction is in English, whereas in Maltepe University, in the graduate school, we have Turkish as the language of research and thesis. In undergraduate, as you know, we had an English language sociology and psychology, and we don't know whether we will. Okay, now we have it. Okay, now a class analysis study on distinction practices. Now, distinction, you will remember from your second year, Bourdieu, is one of the basic books of Bourdieu, Pierre Bourdieu, the French sociologist. Now, in this book, like he did in his previous books on educational sociology, cultural capital is as important as economic capital. Actually, cultural capital and social capital. And he added symbolic capital and political capital. So he differentiated capitals. Now, for Marx, as you remember, the classical sociologist, he emphasized the importance of class, which is based basically on economic capital, ownership and control of means of production, whereas Bourdieu differentiated capitals and hence classes or strata in order to explain the complex nature of social structure, stratificational structure in France in his case. And he he claims that in other countries as well, in other societies as well, the new, in addition to economic capital, other variables might be, it might have an explanatory value. Okay, let me send this away, and then let me share, if I can, just a minute. Just a minute. Now, where is this? Just a minute. Not this. Not this one. Okay. I think since it is in Turkish, I will not be able to share that, it's in Turkish, so I will go into now this one maybe. No, not that one. In ekran, maybe here. Why couldn't I see that? Maybe I will. Okay, now I will translate as I go along. Sorry. Now here I go. Okay, now Didem's research, Didem Yemeniciler's research, was in Istanbul, and she started her research in the theoretical framework of Bourdieu, as Bourdieu used the concepts in the analysis of class in actually Bourdieu collected his data during 60s, and then he brought that analysis further and further as time went on. Now Yemeniciler started her research as a qualitative research, and she did 32 interviews, like talked with people from different classes in detail, and recorded them and deciphered them, etc. 32 2-hour-long interviews. But she said that is not enough, for her analysis of complexity of classes in Turkey at present. Now this is 2020, the year 2000. Actually, she collected her data between 2018 and 2020, and analyzed and wrote it in 2021. And then she also administered a questionnaire to a sample, 604 participants, 604, and then she analyzed them, the quantitative data with, as you also use it, statistical package for social sciences, SPSS, and her qualitative data she used in vivo and vivo qualitative data analysis. And in the quantitative data analysis, she used multiple correspondence analysis, like multiple variable analysis, in SPSS. In SPSS also there's a package which gives you a multiple correspondence analysis, and then she analyzed what kind of classes or strata, class fractions that emerged from there. We will come to that. So her basic assumption, like in Bourdieu's book Distinction, it was that cultural space in a society, cultural space is shaped by different types of capital, like economic capital, cultural capital, social capital, symbolic capital, and actors, household heads, other members of the household, public actors are located in the cultural space in accordance with the composition of the capitals they have and total volume of the capital that they possess. Okay. Now, of course, the sample was only 600, and it was chosen from an online site where a research group have a universe of something like 250,000 participants, and from that 250,000 participants, which is supposed to be a sample of 15 million population of Istanbul, kind of, although there are also people from outside of Istanbul, so it is supposed to be a sample of Turkey in general. And then from that 250,000, she has chosen 600 who answered her questionnaire. So it is limited. It cannot be generalized. Okay, that is the limitation of her data. So she started with, since it is a class analysis, with classical theories of Durkheim, Weber, and of course Marx. Marx brought class analysis into sociology, and Durkheim and Weber modified that in the classical period. Now, in the contemporary period, there are structural analyses of stratification and classes, like Talcott Parsons, Eric Olin Wright, like Hayriye Erbaş used Eric Olin Wright's structural analysis of classes, Goldthorpe and Carcetti, versus Pierre Bourdieu's relational analysis, structural and relational analysis. And then she goes into recent studies like Michael Lamont, Peterson and Kern, Mike Savage, Katz Guerro, Modeste Gallo from Latin America, etc. Okay, now I will not go into details of these theoretical approaches. Now I will go into her multiple correspondent analysis. Her multiple correspondent analysis uses data, cultural data, cultural consumption. The household heads are asked, like, for example, Mehmet Erbaş or like Hayriye Erbaş, what kind of music they listen to. So in terms of listening to folk music, the extent of listening to folk music. or for example, having a hobby or not, or eating on a table, or eating on the ground, you know, the traditional way of eating, using vitamins or not using them, shopping from shock markets or BIM or A101, following Turkish serials in television or not, or the degree of following, Instagram usage, playing card or okay kind of, you know, participation in games, participation in religious activities, religious conversations, going to panels and seminars and conferences or not, or degree of going to them, using or participating or going to restaurants, having dishes from, you know, world kitchen kind of, what kind of sports, participation into sports, smoking cigarette or not, or degree of smoking, Netflix film watching, going to theater or not, going to museum, the degree of going to or not going to, going abroad or not going, you know, during vacations, sushi, whether the participants eat sushi or not, and whether when they go for their touristic activities, they choose 5-star hotels or less, whatever, plus the classical sociological independent variables. Now, these are kind of dependent variables for correspondent, multiple correspondent analysis, but she added also gender, age, educational status, income of the household, being secular and being religious, degree of being religious, being secular, etc. Okay. Now, findings. I think here I will go to the thesis now, and I will share the basic finding. Just a minute here. Let me see now. Okay, here and here, and her thesis, and when I go there, in page 64. Let me go to page 64. 64. Okay. 62, 64, 63 now. Here, 64. Okay, now this is the result of her multiple correspondent analysis. Okay, you see it? You see it. Let me make this larger so that you can see it better. Here, let me go down. Now this is, you know, as a result of a multiple correspondent analysis, 600 people are classified into groups. As you can see here, now how many groups? 16 groups emerged. 16 groups from C1 here, C to C16. Now, in one end, there is C15 here on the left hand side, and on the right hand side there is C16. So these two groups, C15 and C16, are a kind of located in an opposite position in terms of all those variables, the cultural variables and independent variables like age, sex, income, etc. In terms of those, and they are grouped into classes, class 15 and class fraction, let's call them. Class fraction 15 and class fraction 16 are in two opposite in terms of spectrum. Now, population is basically divided into two, as you can see here, into two groups. There are 5 groups on the right hand side, 5 groups, and there are 11 groups in the left hand side. Now, what is the principle that is divided? Now, we think that the principle that divides them is that now those groups on the left hand side are in lesser or greater degree, they participate into those cultural activities, or more than the ones in the left hand side, whereas left hand side participate into them less frequently. So more frequently, less frequent participation into less frequently, more frequently, more activities, less activities, both, frequency and the number of activities. Now, this multiple correspondence analysis puts them into a graph in terms of, again, in relationship to each other. Now, let me take you there in the next page. In the next page, she gives, in the next page, actually, she gives the variables that enter into this analysis. And as you can see here, for example, listening to folk music. Now, the percentage, every day is only 7%. Once in a week, it is 17%. Once in a month, 27%. Once in a year, 23%. I never listen, 25%. For each, if, for example, having a hobby, I don't have any, is 8%, and doing every day is 20%. It goes like that. Or eating on the floor table, on the ground, on the table on the ground, or table above the ground, if you think of that way. Only 7% every day. Once in a month, 12%. But I never have on the ground 42%. So 60% have their meals on the table, etc. It all goes like that. And then she goes into talking about each of them, and now I have to find the map, the diagram where all these classes are located in relationship to each other. Sorry, now I have to go fast and I will find it, hopefully. When will I do that? I will see. Maybe I have to look at the contents. You know, there is here at the contents part. Here there should be now in terms of tables and then graphs. You see there are so many of them. So in 140 there is this, she calls it map, multiple correspondent analysis of map. Let me go there very quickly. 140, 111, 159. Okay, here. Okay, you see here. Let me make this actually larger so that you can better see this location of all groups here. Yeah. So 16. There are 16 groups, and now remember that dendrogram. On one end there was group 15, and on the other side there was group 16. Now together with group 16 there was group 12 as well, and together with group 15 there was also group 13. Now you see group 12 and 16 was on the right hand side of the dendrogram, and groups 15 and 13 were on the left, on the right hand, small 5 groups, and on the left hand there were 11 groups. Okay, now here, as you can see, now somehow this x-axis is in terms of participating into cultural activities, the number of cultural activities and frequency. In terms of that, as you remember, on the right side it was less. So group 12 and group 16, these groups were participating less into less activities. Group 15, group 13, and group 8, for example, they were participating more. So this is one. The other one, the other variable, now why group 15 is here and group 13 is here, in two different quadrants. There are 4 panels here. On the 4th panel, why are they differentiated from each other? What is the y variable? Now y variable is as you go up it is being more religious, and while when you go down it is more secular. So these groups here are more secular and these groups here are more religious. Now the religious group, these 4 groups here, are less participating in those list of activities that I have shown you. And in the second part, the religious but participating into more activities. For example, group 15 is omnivorous, participating almost in all activities, whereas group 12 is participating only few cultural activities. Maybe Yemeniciler, Didem Yemeniciler says that maybe there are some other activities that that she didn't put into her questionnaire. The group 12, both group 12 and group 15 are religious in relationship to groups in the in this y-axis in the down part of it. Now, what differentiates the two? One thing that differentiates the two, group 12 and 15, those omnivorous ones and participation into less activity. Now, group 12 is, in terms of economic capital and also cultural capital, more. They have more. Whereas group 15, in terms of income and other variables, is poorer, actually. They are poor, but participating in mono activities. The other ones are rich in terms of capitals, but participating into less activities. Now, in the secular groups also, group 8 participating less. Now, actually, Yemeniciler grouped these 16 class fractions into 7 groups, and then she had a new map, as you can see here, a new map, and then she analyzed each of them, each group of 7 of these 7 groups. Now, group 15 is group 12 up there. Group 7 is, now group 12 is G5, and group, now just a minute, group 15, or class fraction 15, becomes group 7 here. Sorry, what happened? Okay, now I have to pull this and make it smaller. Sorry. Okay. Now, group 6 is group 15. So group 12. Okay, group 12 and group 15, and then group 13. Just a minute. The one on the other side. This group 13 here is group 6. Group 13 is group 6. Okay, now then she goes into each of them, how many of them. For example, group 1 comprises 242 people. They are economic and in terms of economic and educational and cultural capital, and in terms of their religiosity and secularism, they are closer to secular end, group 1. Where was group 1? Let's just see here. Group 1, close to the center, in the omnivorous side, but not as much as group 7, but less. Okay, now that was group 1. Group 2, 90 people, for economic and educational and cultural capital, less than group 1, and what is it? Dindarlık ve Müslümanlığa biraz daha mesafeli. So group 2 is also secular. Here, as I said, in this part, it is secular. Group 3 and group 6 as well. But from here on upward, it is more religious, more capital. Okay. And then group 3, we said already. Group 4, from economic capital, it is like in the second group, but from educational and cultural capital in the second rank. And group 4 is very close to Islamic values and distant to secular values. So if you look at where was group 4, group 4, you see here, group 4, similarly group 5, and similarly, you see when we look at this axis here, this axis, this is more religious, less secular, and this axis here is more secular, less religious. So, if we think of this as representing Istanbul population or Turkish population, somehow there are 4 groups religious, 3 groups less religious. Although there is one characteristic of the sample and of Turkey is that almost everybody are religious and everybody secular, but it is less or more a question of, those who are closer to secular end, or they also fast, they also go to Friday prayers, a percentage of them, or those who are religious, they also say that they are secular, 80%. They also say that they are Atatürkist, for example. Now, Didem Yemeniciler's conclusion is that in Turkey, it is not like in France. In France, classes in terms of economic capital and classes in terms of cultural capital, there was a map where you can see various classes in terms of their cultural activities. Some cultural activities are adopted by elite classes in terms of France, upper classes, let's say, and some other cultural practices are practiced by lower classes, popular culture and dominant culture and popular culture. Whereas in Turkey, this religion secularism issue, division or distribution, and class distribution. So in those terms, how cultural capital is to be defined in terms of secular values, to what extent secular values defines upper classes, to what extent religious values, in terms of cultural capital, define upper classes and lower classes. So this is in Bourdieusian literature. This is called homogeneity hypothesis. Now, in France, there is a homogeneity between cultural capital, economic capital, social capital. There's a correspondence. Whereas it is Yemeniciler's thesis, this homogeneity does not come out very strongly in the case of Turkish class analysis, Bourdieuian class analysis. So actually, we are trying to understand this, you know, how to understand class and stratificational structure, social structure, sociocultural structure of Turkey. Actually, you know, history of Turkish sociology, history of development of sociology in Turkey is exactly the main concern of them is this exactly. You know, now if we can think of sociologists into two groups, one group focuses more on socioeconomic structural variables and modernization, economic development, welfare, and survival of the society and state. Then the other group focuses more identity, religion, symbolic issues, and in terms of continuation of identity or break with the identity is the primary issue in the second group, whereas in the first group it is secondary. Structural variables are primary. In this one, symbolic, cultural, religious issues are primary, and economic development, structural variables are secondary. Now here, in an analysis of a sample, 600 participants, in terms of their gender, age, religiosity, secularism, and their participation into various cultural activities. That's what came out, you know. First 16 class fractions. There are so many class fractions, which can be reduced to 7, you know, and there, to what extent there is polarization, to what extent plurality, you know, as for example Erbaş formulated it, you know, in Ankara and Kırıkkale, she found out that instead of polarization, you know, between two classes, for example, there is plurality of in terms of determining dimensions, in terms of family structure and other variables. And in the case of Yemeniciler also, instead of polarization and a clear crystallized class structure, we have a plurality, and hence homogenization hypothesis is not supported, it seems, from the data that emerged from research, from data collected from last 30 years, you know, from 1990s to 2020, 30 years. Okay, I think I will stop here. And as I said, you know, you can go into each of these research of